All right, what are we doing on Thursday, Colin?
We got NAPE. NAPE's in town. So we're going to be at NAPE. We got a booth. It's funny, I posted this Twitter thread with all these badass ideas of what I would do if I ran NAPE, which included a catapult outside, dressing up dummies, crash dummies as oil, just stop oil protesters and launching them over the convention center. $15 a launch, good little revenue stream there. Get one of the water gun carnival games, but instead of shooting the clown faces, you're shooting faces of Greta Thunberg. And after that, we made a partnership.
That reminded me of Big Head's potato launcher in Silicon Valley.
I
It was with Hooli.
Nice.
What was it?
It was, if you've never seen Silicon Valley, you wouldn't.
We need Jake here. Jake's the one that's seen Silicon Valley. I haven't. He always told me about it. He's like, it's just like our lives. I'm like, why the fuck would I want to watch that? But anyway,
it's high satire.
We'll be at NAPE on Thursday. Me and Chuck and John and Jake will be floating in and out of there.
Come join us.
Yeah, we got a booth. So come hang out with us. And I think we might also have discount codes if you're on the DW email list. Should seen an email come out. So anyways, big week. We'll be there. Lots of stuff happening in energy too. Who's got the run of show? Who's kicking it off today?
I'll just kick off because I don't know where the run of show is. Man, it's a shit show in the Middle East. I'm gonna have some numbers wrong, but U.S. bases I think have been attacked 165 different times over the last 3 or 4 months. We had 3 Navy SEALs, right? Or were they military?
Yeah.
Die when a drone attacked us in Jordan. Yeah. We launched airstrikes against Syria. There's talk of Iran shooting bombs into our largest military base in Syria. This is like Nostradamus World War III type prediction stuff happening, and I think the media is reporting on it, but they don't seem to be taking it as seriously as this could be.
It is kind of interesting. Like, all my memories of being a kid, like in the early 90s at the Gulf War, it's like that's all the news was just war coverage. And it seems like, right.
And also crude went up a lot.
Yeah. It just seems like this doesn't get as much attention as maybe it did back then. I don't know if there's a reason for that or not, but just doesn't seem like anyone takes conflict seriously because all of those things are very serious things. But
yeah, a lot of this, and I was reading it up on it this morning. There was a retaliatory strike on a base in Syria, I think that you mentioned for the strikes over the weekend. It happened Sunday night, and these are mostly, from what I understand, Iranian-backed militia that are executing these attacks. And the raid last night killed a bunch of I forget the affiliation, but no Americans were killed in the strike on the Syrian base. And there's a U.S. presence there because they're doing military training in Syria. So it's kind of, from the media attention standpoint, like it's a bunch of little skirmishes. Although in our raids over the weekend, we did fly a B-1 from the U.S. to participate in the bombing that the strikes that the U.S. took in Iraq and Syria.
And maybe the differentiator back, the Gulf War, and then the taking out Saddam Hussein is, there was a buildup to a big thing, right? We're in the UN getting permission to invade another country, basically. So there was that buildup and all, and these are little skirmishes popping up. But my worry about this is on the humanity level of what could happen and deaths and lives. So I don't want to trivialize it by having to talk about energy, but ultimately that's what we are, as an energy show. A drone flying right into the middle of the war field. Now, I know the Saudis have security that probably prevents that, but you'd also think the U.S. military base in Jordan would have security that prevents that. So,
well, it's crazy.
And Jordan was where the three U.S. servicemen were
What's
killed
crazy
in
is that
strikes.
drones are changing warfare because, we've always had, these massive drones that the United States has, but all of a sudden in the last couple of years, how just these small drones are being used as well. It's kind of changing the dynamics of war because now for a couple $1,000, you can have a pretty significant attack on someone. So, you see these videos like in Ukraine, in the Russian-Ukraine war, how they're using drones. It's pretty interesting how it's becoming cheaper to inflict damage as well. So even like if you have defense, like, yeah, and we have the Iron Dome and all this shit, but could the Iron Dome pick up a small drone from, with explosives? Probably not.
No, I mean, it really was 9/11 where bin Laden basically showed that for a $250 airline ticket,
yeah, for sure,
you could go inflict casualties. And I think kind of that mindset change as well as technology.
Yeah,
but this is something we have to watch for, because I'm sure, and maybe we just kind of roll right into this. The worst thing a management team could ever say to me when I was sitting at Kane was, this time it's different.
Yeah.
I would always go, oh God, it's never different, blah, blah, blah. But, reports are coming out that U.S. production seems to have rolled over. We're down, pick a number, 200, 300,000 barrels a day over the last couple of months. Inventories are drawing to really, really low levels. The Saudis are out there talking about 13 million a day. Now we really meant 12, and claiming to do it politically as opposed to maybe they just don't have the rock to be able to do it.
Chuck's thesis, exactly. I've only had it since 2017. So,
but my point is, low inventories, U.S. rolling over, $70 oil, no real incentive to do more of this, and warfare going on in the world. It just seems like we're on the verge of and oil keeps dropping. So
it doesn't really,
I don't know. Mark, make sense of that for me, because I can't.
Good luck with that. Look, Josh Young was on CNBC, one of the affiliates this morning, talking about, where is the market? It's tighter than consensus seems to believe, mainly on the result of what Exxon and Chevron reported in terms of stronger results, but also talking about, at least in their U.S. portfolios, production expected to be down from higher than expected levels in the fourth quarter. And at least in Chevron's case, one analyst had talked about the notion that Chevron had said, we basically need to build a bit more DUC inventory in the first half, so production is going to be down. But their production exit for 2024 is expected to be, I think, about 40,000 barrels a day higher than they were in 4Q of 23. So all these crosswinds and trying to figure out what's going on in crude markets when the physicals start to indicate things are getting tighter, but yet, we've lost ground in both Brent and TI.
Yeah.
Who knows? And adding to the never put it in writing that it's different this time, that was Dan Pickering's mandate when he ran research and said, if you do put that in writing, you're fired because it's never different. Anyway.
Yeah, it's funny thinking about, Desert Storm and wars in the Gulf. I had this trunk full of like childhood items that my mom brought to me. She finally cleaned out the attic and anyways, opened it up the other day and forgot, but I had these in their military trading cards. Like it was Topps trading cards, and it's like of all the generals and the planes, and huge fucking propaganda initiative there. But going back to like how like that was like a big thing then, when like everyone was like invested in the war in the Middle East, even to the point where you had kids collecting trading cards on the generals and shit. And
so I knew, because there was some actual doubt when we went against Saddam Hussein in the first Gulf War. I mean, there was some talk of, the United States is number one, but Saudi, I think, was the third largest military or the fourth largest military. There was some talk there was going to be a challenge here and all this. Kim and I had gone to Vegas. Just, we were young, either late in college or just had graduated. And we were there. And we were at a table with a bunch of Navy pilots, And they were just like, yeah, this is kind of our last weekend away. We're going to go over to Iraq. We're going to take down Saddam Hussein and all this. And I was like, oh man, good luck. Dude gets a 19. He says, hit it. And the dealer looks at him and goes, you sure you want to hit that? And he said, yes. He got a 2. And so I knew Saddam Hussein was fucked at that point. I'm like, dude, I'm not going against these guys. So
This was Desert Storm.
This is Desert Storm. This was number one.
I
Schwartz
have,
call.
those, where were you when these things happen? I was at Midland's finest seafood restaurant, otherwise known as Red Lobster.
I was going to say Long John Silver's.
And there was a TV on. And if you remember, you'll remember, I think the most famous on-scene reporting was from CNN. They were about the only international cable affiliate or network. And Bernie Shaw and John Holloman were holed up in I forget the name of the hotel in Baghdad, but I think that was the genesis of the shock and awe commentary, because they had that grainy footage, but the skies lit up.
Yeah, skies lit up. That's what I always remember. Is like, I always remember like dark skies and just like missiles and guns shooting off. So, but it's interesting, like just going back to this, it's like, is it because it's not one concentrated effort? It's a whole bunch of different skirmishes. Who knows? But hopefully, things sort out sooner than later.
There's some cynics out there commenting that, look, we're trying to keep the headlines tamped down, and really the risk associated with all of this really mushrooming into something much larger, and that we need to keep energy prices, crude prices low, at least until after November 5th.
Yeah.
And so,
yeah,
I do think there's a bit of different fundamentals, at least in the way investors look and traders look at the landscape.
It's just more support in my thesis that fundamentals don't matter. Like, seriously, I mean, it's so much speculation. Like, maybe over a long enough time horizon, fundamentals matter. But how many times have we been on the show, or you see people talking on Twitter and they're counting molecules and looking at supply and demand, but oil opens up going down. Like, seems to never make sense or have any rhyme or reason to it.
And our response, the fundamental adherence response to that, you're never wrong, you're just early.
Yeah.
Exactly. Long live Matt Simmons.
But the reversal in plans to increase that capacity, the maximum sustainable capacity from 12 to 13, was met with a smackdown of some of the biggest OFS names. I think Schlumberger was down 7% in the first day trading after that came out. And so, after speaking in their earnings calls, there was a lot of constructive commentary about international. Of course, that's looking out quarters and maybe a year, but longer term. The other undercurrent here, or the other sidebar, is, as we've seen, the Saudis are increasingly talking about accelerating gas development. We talked about that last week. So, is this kind of a shift in portfolio allocation? And if that's the case, maybe we displace some crude that we're otherwise using domestically, which is all part of that thesis around them going harder after natural gas and being an LNG player as well.
Yeah.
So,
well, let's do this as kind of the get out question on this. Give me kind of a prediction of some sort, and let's just frame it before the end of the year. What kind of happens? Maybe what kind of happens with crude prices? Maybe is there a way to play it? And Colin, I'll go to you first, because Mark kind of glared at me and said, "Give me 30 seconds." So look into your crystal ball.
Yeah, I thought the point Mark brought up was really interesting about suppressing headlines and trying to keep prices low until November. Like, that actually seems valid. I hadn't thought about that. And so, anyways, I wouldn't expect any significant upward price action. I could see it, ending the year at $90 a barrel. I don't know if it'll go much lower either. So, if we're talking about fundamentals, I think fundamentals set up for where you should have higher prices, but there's probably some things happening behind the scenes too to keep prices artificially suppressed. So,
yeah, I'll add to that. When you follow the guys that follow crude on Twitter, like Rory Johnson and some of the others, they can't figure out why prices are kind of bouncing around like they are. Like they'll have a big run up and then they'll just drop.
Yeah.
And then they'll drop one day and bounce up, and people are like, this doesn't make any sense. So you wonder if something's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
I'm happy to say I wear a tinfoil hat.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's like you have artificial factors too that could be.
I mean,
at
is
play,
somebody
so.
manipulating the SPR, for instance, and stuff like that?
Yeah.
So
I just think we'll find a narrative somewhere in the political discourse that keeps prices from rocketing to the upside. If rocketing is, another $10 from here, I'd put a much higher probability on, kind of finishing the year with a 7 handle on TI. Maybe Brent is north of 80 if we continue to see inventories indicate a tighter market.
Yeah.
I just, we got surprised last year in 23 with everybody got surprised whose business it is to estimate what the U.S. is going to do, for example, and, beat it by several 100,000 barrels a day. I mean, we almost grew production in the U.S. by 1 million barrels a day when earlier expectations were as low as 300,000 to 400,000 barrels a day.
Yeah.
And as Aubrey famously said at IPAA back in, I believe it was 2012, as we're moving into, the salad days of oil from shale and the growth coming on the heels of what happened the preceding 7, 8, 10 years in natural gas, he said, we're just too good at this stuff.
Yeah.
We're causing this problem. And he said it's going to happen in oil as well. And so I don't know what's going on below the waterline. There's still that conflict of we're running out of inventory, tier one. Technology can take us only so far. But you, Colin, have talked quite a bit about, look, the prize is another few percentage points in recovery factors on oil in place, most of which is going to be left in place.
Yeah.
With current technology. So the push is continuing below the radar in a lot of little individual actions that all add up to, I think, stronger production performance. At least 2023 is an indication of that.
Yeah.
And so why would we expect that to come to a screeching halt?
Yeah.
Is there more of a bow wave effect into 2024?
Yeah.
Vicky did say at Davos, as we also talked about, that get ready for tight markets in 2025 for several years.
Yeah. I mean, we've been talking about a super cycle for years now, and it never really came. But
all right, y'all are both wrong, and let me tell you why. But it starts with me and a mea culpa, because when we did this on BDE about, call it, 18 months ago, we were talking about oil prices, and I said before the end of the year, December 23, it would spike upwards of close to 100. But then it would moderate off and roll into the elections, November of 24, at $70 a barrel. I had it in reverse. We were able to, because of the unanticipated growth in oil prices, the SPR, the beating of the narrative in the media, etc., we were able to keep it at 70. I'm going to go out and apologize to Barry Mullinex because he was the worst offender as a CEO of saying this time is different. Barry, I'm sorry, but I'm going to say it. This time's different. We're going to have a shock before the election, and we're gonna see at least 90.
All right.
Okay.
Chuck's taking the other side of it.
I am on the record.
All right.
Weren't you calling at some point when we did a round of forecast or predictions back in kind of COVID era levels? I'm not talking about negative pricing, but there was going to be some dislocation to the downside.
I probably did. I also am on record.
You know how we could figure that out? Collide Pro.
Collide Pro. Go look it up.
Well, the podcast, when I spoke at NAPE 3 years ago, I actually called for $125.73 oil or something ridiculous, and we got awfully close on that. I got some Twitter people pinging me going, dude, you called it.
Still the greatest thing ever is my Justin Bieber call. If I ever showed you this. So Justin Bieber releases this music video and he's out in the oil field working. And I mean, this is like in the belly of downturn and during COVID. And he's got this video and he's like working on a pipeline. There's oil shooting everywhere. And so I did this reaction video to it. And I tweeted it out. You can go look up the tweet. And the tweet said, Justin Bieber doing this video marks the bottom of the oil cycle. It said $200 oil is coming in. And dude, it almost lines up exactly like that was the bottom. Then a few weeks later, oil just starts taking off. And so it's called the Justin Bieber indicator.
My favorite indicator because it involves myself. And so that's why, of course, I'm going to talk about it. Energy Cynic always likes to tweet out that peak oil was the YDC where I got roasted and got a tattoo on my butt.
Yeah.
Jewel was one of my roasters and she came in and just obliterated me. Priest Patrick was one of my roasters. He came in and obliterated me as well. And Energy Cynic has said, that was the glory days, guys. It's been all shit ever since.
Yeah, it's all downhill since then.
One more longer dated story. Everybody remembers the famous drowning in oil cover from The Economist in 1999. Matt Simmons called The Economist the Friday before, I believe, they went out the next week and told them this would be a disaster if you publish this thesis that, you know, we're going to see $10 crude for a long time. And that was actually the bottom right around that time. And then he wrote Twilight in the Desert, which history is judged a bit differently, but
I don't know what Twilight in the Desert is.
In all seriousness, you ought to go read that because that was, what year did he publish that? Early
2005.
2005. So he basically said that Saudi has peaked.
Oh, okay.
And he did it very well researched. He did not bash Saudi.
Yeah.
It was not these guys are stupid. It was like, technically they're as good as anyone on the planet.
Yeah.
The rock's giving up.
Yeah.
Water cuts are getting higher. Pressure's dropping. All this sort of stuff. And he wasn't that wrong.
Matt spent a bunch of his summer before the book was published, when most people in Maine are enjoying the outdoors and the water. And in a Maine summer, he's sitting at his dining room table reading Journal of Petroleum Technology.
Yeah.
And had stacks and stacks of those. And I guarantee that for someone who certainly didn't have a petroleum engineering degree, he's read multiples more of those JPT monographs than a number of us,
for sure,
myself included.
So what else?
It was an interesting time.
What else do we have happen during this week? I've been kind of out of the loop. I've been arguing with people on Twitter about hard hats and shit, which, you know, Kirk he's wearing his hard hat backwards on BDE last week. I don't know if anyone ever actually brought it up. People are probably just watching it and like,
I'll be the finance bro and admit I couldn't tell.
He's like, why is this dude wearing his hat backwards? Let me give a quick demonstration real quick.
Please
because
do.
I got a lady in my mentions and she's saying that you can wear your hard hat forwards or backwards. And she's like, oh, well, even OSHA says that you can wear it forwards or backwards. There's a difference between the hard hat and the suspension here. Suspension can only be worn one way. It's always got the ratchet in the back. So that's how you know if it's backwards or forwards. Now, like they make some hats that look like kind of like baseball hats and like you can wear it backwards, but your suspension is still going to be in the back. So when Joe Biden's wearing it like this, like the hard hat is backwards.
It's an OSHA violation.
It's an OSHA violation. So don't fucking argue with me about how to wear a hard hat. I used to wear 100 hours a week.
And one of the most complex things, most frustrating things ever to do is replace the suspension in a hard hat.
Dude,
it never goes well.
It's so infuriating. Like trying to get those little
tabs,
rivets, or those tabs to pop in and out. Yep. So anyways, there's
I want to make a quick hard hat comment. Oilfield Rando tweeted out this week that his hard hat is just about done. He's got to get a new one.
Yeah.
If he will put Digital Wildcatters stickers on it and like an I Love Nimble Fatty sticker on it or something like that, I'll pay for his hard hat.
I want to send him like a badass carbon fiber Digital Wildcatters hard hat. I love Oilfield Rando. I'll do that from an RB.
We'll do that in
it's one of my favorite dudes on the planet.
Yeah, so we're gonna clip this. We're gonna send it out on Twitter,
on Twitter,
Twitter X, and see if he sees it and if he'll take us up on it. We'll totally do that.
Sounds good.
All right. Kind of one last thing. There are probably 100 other things we could talk about this week, but we need to go get ready for NAPE, and we'll bring it big time. All the investigation we do at NAPE this week, we'll bring to the show next week. But the girlfriend who had suggested, hey, y'all quit calling Europe a uniblock, investigate Europe and all its different countries because they're all different about energy, had said kind of over December, 2024 is the year of the election. It's estimated that 2 billion people are going to vote. 7 out of the 10 largest democracies are voting this year. A lot of geopolitical powers, Great Britain, etc., are voting this year. And so one of the things she said to us is, hey, why don't y'all look at each of these elections, give a little update on them, what's going on there, but more importantly, kind of how that impacts energy, because this could be a big deal this year.
Is she going to help us with that? Because I don't know shit about it.
Oh, my God.
Where do you think he's getting his notes?
She's had some time on her hands. And so,
she's bringing Laura on the show for that.
Yeah. No, I told her to come down and do it. And she actually is taking notes, and she may wind up creating this content.
Yeah.
So we'll do the abstract or the summary version.
Yeah.
The first one we're going to talk about real quick is Congo. And technically, Congo had their elections in December of 2023.
Yeah.
So it's happened. But just to summarize a little bit, we all know why Congo is so important. We've talked about that a million times on the show. 70% of the world's cobalt production is from there. You're using that in batteries and alloys, etc. One thing, when I started looking at this, I didn't realize Congo has always been a supplier of resources to the world. I mean, back in the 1880s, timber and rubber came out of Congo because the Belgian king, King Leopold II, in effect, kind of colonized Congo. Mm-hmm. And the British girlfriend likes to say, yeah, we were bad colonizers, but you sure as hell didn't want to be a Belgian colony. And then the uranium, actually, that we did the Manhattan Project with, came out of the Congo.
Okay.
There's a mine there that was unique. It was the cheapest uranium on the planet and very strategic for a while.
What was the former name of the country?
I do not know this.
Throw a little trivia in there.
Do you know?
Throw us an answer.
Zaire.
Dang.
There we go.
Mark's full of knowledge.
So real quick on Congo, the Second Congo War, actually 5 million people died. It was the largest wartime losses since World War II, and kind of what arose out of the Congo, which for a long time had been a dictatorship, et cetera, is in 2006, they put in place a new constitution and multi-parties got together, so they became a democracy. They had an election. Joseph Kabila won. He had been serving as the temporary leader leading into this. He was also the former leader's son. So
nice.
We have a democracy, but then we kind of have a democracy.
Nepotism.
So anyway, the Constitution says 2 consecutive 5-year terms. He served those 2 terms. Should have been an election in 2016. He stayed an extra 2 years. Political pressure from the outside caused him to throw an election in which, I will not pronounce this correctly, Felix Tshisekedi actually
Don't
won.
Don't look at me.
Philip Cheese? Is that what you said?
Now I can't say it again. I got it right, I think, the first time we checked. He was the leader of the Union for Democracy and Social Progress, which was the opposition power, but there are all sorts of allegations of fraud, corruption. There's talk of an unholy deal with the former leader that they kind of packaged this together. Remember when Putin's lieutenant took over, but Putin was still running the show? There's a lot of talk about that. So fast forward to 2023, the elections that happened. Tshisekedi won re-election, but again, all sorts of charges of fraud and corruption. The Financial Times actually did an analysis because the Catholic Church had put 40,000 observers at polling places. Based on the Catholic Church's math, 59% of the vote went to the opposition candidate, Martin Fayulu, and Felix only got just under 39% of the vote. So we kind of lay all that out to say we, in effect, kind of have a very corrupt democracy in Congo. And where I think that matters when we start talking about the energy business is what happens when you have resource development in a corrupt country.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're seeing history replay itself here. And the last thing I'll throw out there, just because it's really interesting, because we know all about cobalt. They actually have plans to build the Grand Inga Dam, which would be able to generate 40,000 megawatts of power. So that would be 2x the largest hydroelectric facility on the planet, bigger than the Three Gorges Dam in China.
Yeah.
And that could literally power all of Congo, and they could export to South Africa, et cetera.
Yeah.
So it's interesting from an energy point of view, because all the cobalt and potentially a game changer resource for electricity in that part of the world.
A lot of leverage. Yeah.
Well, to address the past in terms of what happens when you're trying to be a player, an international player in resources in a corrupt country, the last U.S. mining concern in cobalt left, I believe, in 2006. And that was Freeport McMoran, I believe. And so it's really hard to get, navigate all of that around our special restrictions, the most well-known of which is the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act.
Yeah.
And Chinese interest control, I think there's 19 mining concerns or concessions in the cobalt golden lane, and 15 or 16 of those 19 are Chinese. And so, and further downstream, I think the number's north of 80% source of refined cobalt comes out of China.
Yeah.
Yeah.
China colonizing Africa and then with their own supply and country. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. We got to wrap this up. We only have a minute and a half. Got a hard deadline. Chuck needs to go to the doctor and get his prostate checked out.
You're going to send me a sorry you got a finger in your butt card this week? There you go.
I don't get very many chances to throw the prostate joke back out at you. But real quick, want to give a shout out to one of my homies, Lucas Lowe. It's U.S. Coast Guard, rescued a puppy that was stuck in a shipping container, and it's gone viral. It's all over CNN and doing millions of views on the internet. So like his picture of him in uniform rescuing this puppy.
That's awesome.
He's getting all the ladies right now with that. So
shout
out to Lucas.
Man in a uniform, hero, and a puppy.
Saving a puppy. Like you got all the elements that you need for a good story there. So pretty cool to see that. We will be at NAPE this week. Come hang out with us.
We'll be at all the parties too. We'll see you at the
parties,
Opportune party, etc.
Yep. Shout out to Opportune. We'll be there. We'll be at the Landman Life Happy Hour. Be at NAPE After Dark. So we'll be all over Houston. And I'm sure we will be back next week with some stories. I hope to see some landman fist fighting over overriding royalty interests. Those are always my favorites. So catch you guys next week.